Cancer-free lymphoma cancer, our cancer story. Hello, y'all. I'm Diane. Well, I haven't talked about this subject for a while because, well, we have been on our journey and life has gotten busy, and I've talked about a lot of other subjects. And another reason is I didn't really have anything fresh and new to say in regards to the subject. So this is more kind of an update of previous videos on this topic of cancer and the journey that we have taken. First of all, I give no advice, no suggestions, and no information. I just share our journey and how we did it, okay? Well, as many of you know, about a year ago, it was over a year ago, and how I know it was over a year ago because last night I went to do a live stream and I looked back up on my other live streams and it had been over a year since I had done a live stream. And so I did a very brief live stream last night. And YouTube, I don't think, pushed me out. So if after maybe 15 minutes I notice that I'm not being pushed out, then sometimes I will just drop off and maybe come on at another time. And I'm not sure how YouTube works and how they decide when they're going to push you out and, you know, notify people and when not. But nonetheless, I realized last night that that it had been over a year since I had talked about, since this all started taking place. And when it took place a year ago, it came as a shock. My husband had developed a cough, a dry cough, and I knew right away he didn't have a cold. I just knew it, and I didn't even told him that. I said, Jack, you don't have a cold. We're Jack and Diane. Or as people call us, Jack and Diane. And so he developed a cough, and he ignored it for a few days, and then he got chest pain and chest discomfort, and I told him to go to the emergency room right away, in which he did. And so he went, but it was back when it took forever to get through the emergency room because it was just such an enormous wait. So he came back home and called his doctor, and the next day the doctor saw him. They did a chest scan, and they determined that there was a huge mass sitting next to his heart and next to his lungs, and that was what was bringing on the cough. Long story short, it turned out to be a form of lymphoma cancer that was cancer, and it was then determined that it was in the last stage of cancer. So all of this came to such an overwhelming shock for him, for me, although he handled it wonderfully, or as wonderfully as someone can handle getting that kind of diagnosis. And our options were not very good. The only option they gave him was chemotherapy. No radiation. They couldn't treat him with radiation, nor could they treat him with surgery because of the location, I guess, is the reason. And so he basically went on chemotherapy, and it was massive doses of heavy-duty chemotherapy done 5 days a week. It was done 5 days a week for about 8 hours a day. And then he would be off for 2 weeks and then back on another 5 days. And this went on for about several months. And it was just awful. He was so sick, and all the typical side effects of losing his hair. He didn't really get nauseated like a lot of people do, but he lost his hair, and he just had so many side effects at that time. And so fast forward, you know, it was very traumatic for me. It was traumatic for our family. It was traumatic for, you know, all of us. And he was so brave how he went through this. And he had always been healthy. He's 5 years younger than I am. Always been healthy, always taking care of his body, always worked out. So it just didn't make sense. And so basically, he, after he came off chemotherapy, he had the PET scans and CAT scans and all that, and it had only been reduced 25%. And I said, well, that's not good enough. And so right at that very point, I went online, did all my research the best I could, read books on the more holistic approaches, including diet and certain supplements, which We did. Now, I don't recommend any of that. I'm not recommending it. I'm just telling you our journey. And I'm not going to give you the specifics of it because we had to kind of create and piece together what would work for us. And so we consulted the doctor and made sure that the doctors knew and they approved of, basically anything that we wanted to do that way, as long as it was healthy. And so we went on a very healthy way of eating, although we've always eaten healthy, but there were certain things that we eliminated from our foods and our diet. And so let's fast forward it about 2 or 3 more months. He went in for the CAT scan, and it had come down about 75%. Now, whether that was an end result of the chemo, whether it was the diet that we were on, or whether it was a combination of both, or was simply a miracle, I don't know. And I believe it was all a miracle, however it happened and however it was done. And so basically, we continued on with this diet, and there was nothing else that they were going to do at this time. And he had had several other tumors or masses or whatever you want to call them in several other places and other areas of his body. So it was more than one big one. And basically, we continued on. And then he decided he wasn't going to continue on. We went on a vacation, and he said, I'm not going to continue on this diet for right now. Although he continued on the supplements that we were taking, he did not continue on the diet as we did it, although he ate healthy. And so when he did go in to have the most recent CAT scan and tumor markers and all of that blood work, they essentially said that he was cancer-free from our understanding. There was no cancer. There was no mass sitting next to his heart as there had been, and it was a huge mass. And, of course, he stopped coughing probably about 3 months after pretty close to when the chemo was done, close to done, is when he stopped coughing. So the chemo must have reduced it. We don't know if it was the chemo or not, but it was reduced enough to where he wasn't coughing. And so it really was to us a miracle. And so the most recent CAT scan is that he is cancer free. There was no tumors showing anywhere to the best of our understanding. And when he went and saw his doctor, he got a very good report. Now, remember, we don't take anything for granted. We don't take the fact that at this time he is cancer-free. We don't take that for granted. We just understand that he's cancer-free at this time. And we are so grateful. We don't know if it, like I said, if it was the chemotherapy, if it was the diet, if it was solely a miracle, if it was a miracle done through every different way. We don't know. We have no clue. We have no idea. And we don't give suggestions or advice to other people. We're just sharing our journey. Our journey was very challenging and very difficult. And for me, it was very scary. We tried to shield our young adult kids as much as we could from the details of it all. Although they were fully aware, we tried to kind of shield them from it. And so, I had gotten sick during that time, as I talked about in other videos. They couldn't figure out what it was. And, a lot of people were saying, oh, it's stress. And I was very, very sick. At one point, I went to the emergency room. And long story short, after I got better, after about 3 months, and it was stomach related. And I'd never had an issue like that before. And essentially what we've come to believe is that I had an allergic reaction going on. And I'm not going to go into a lot of details, but we believe that I had an allergic reaction, and it had made me sick. And so it was a real challenging time. And that was, almost a year ago. Well, it was a year ago that he got the cancer diagnosis. And so it's been a year out, a little over a year now since his cancer diagnosis. And I think he finished his chemotherapy in June, and his hair's all grown back. He's playing golf. He's back at work. He's doing amazing. He feels great. He has some neuropathy in his hands and his feet, but he's dealing with that, and he doesn't complain about it or anything, although it exists, and we don't know if it's ever going to go completely away. We are believing that that will subside and go away. And so this is our cancer journey, our cancer miracle, our story. Everyone's story can be different, and we understand that everyone's story can be different and is different. It may have similarities, but it may be very different. And what works well for one person may not work so well for another, and vice versa. So each person has to find out what works well for them and what works best for them. I always believe in consulting your doctors, your specialists, getting the right doctors, getting the right information, and keeping a very, very positive attitude. And it can be very, very challenging to keep a positive attitude when you step out into such an unknown as we did. And so here we are today, and we take every day as a gift from God. We are so grateful for each and every day, and for us, it just made us more appreciate everything so much more. Although we were always grateful, we were always appreciative people, it just has made us so much more. Okay, well, that was my update on our cancer story. I don't talk a lot about cancer right now because I've done so many videos on it, as I have with a wide range of topics. I try to keep my topics fresh and new, and if I don't have something new to say, I often don't talk about that subject. Okay, well, may God bless you. I hope you like, share, subscribe, and I hope to talk to you soon again. Bye-bye.